What would happen if a CEO disguised himself as an ordinary customer and discovered that an employee was insulting him right inside his own luxurious showroom? The floor-to-ceiling glass doors swung open, revealing the luxurious interior of Caldwell and Partners Real Estate. Warm, golden light reflected off marble walls and glittering crystal chandeliers, creating an atmosphere of pure Manhattan opulence. Ethan Caldwell stood at the entrance, his hand casually tucked into the pocket of his khaki pants. The navy polo shirt he wore made him look out of place in a space designed exclusively for the ultra-wealthy. He stepped inside, his calm gaze sweeping across the room, pausing briefly at the walls, showcasing multi-million-dollar properties before making his way toward the reception desk. Brooke Whitfield, the blonde receptionist with a perfectly styled high bun, sat behind the polished marble counter, tapping away at her phone. Her long, manicured nails clicked against the surface, and she didn't bother to look up when she heard approaching footsteps. It wasn't until Ethan's calm, steady voice broke the silence. "Hello. I'd like to see the listings for commercial properties on Park Avenue," that Brooke slowly raised her head. Instead of offering a professional smile, her eyes swept over him from head to toe, filled with barely concealed disdain. "You want to buy on Park Avenue?" Brooke's voice dripped with sarcasm, loud enough for nearby clients to hear. She gave a mocking laugh, resting her chin on her hand. "Every project here starts at $2 million. I'm afraid you'd be more comfortable with something in Queens." With that, she picked up a wrinkled, outdated brochure and tossed it carelessly onto the counter. The paper slipped off, landing on the floor by Ethan's feet. The atmosphere shifted instantly. Several wealthy clients, those being served champagne in crystal glasses by eager staff, turned their heads, their eyes filled with curiosity and quiet contempt. An older woman in Chanel frowned slightly but said nothing, sipping her drink as a young associate bent almost double to serve her. The contrast was stark. Attentive service for worthy clients, open humiliation for the man with brown skin in casual clothes. Ethan's expression didn't change. He slowly bent down, picked up the brochure, and placed it back on the counter. His dark eyes locked on Brooke's as he spoke evenly, each word deliberate. "I still want to see the listings for commercial properties on Park Avenue." His voice was so calm, so unwavering, that Brooke hesitated for just a moment. Then, recovering quickly, she smirked, folded her arms across her chest, and let out a derisive laugh, clearly ready to continue embarrassing him in front of the entire showroom. In the corner of the room, a young intern, Emma Brooks, adjusted her phone, glancing toward them. She had accidentally activated Instagram Live, and the camera was now capturing every tense second of the exchange. No one in the room noticed, but in that very moment, a social media storm had already begun to take shape. The air in the lobby seemed to grow heavier as Brooke Whitfield tilted her head, a mocking smile curling at her lips. She swept her gaze over Ethan from head to toe, her voice deliberately raised so everyone nearby could hear. "Another dreamer who thinks he belongs on Park Avenue. Do you really think you can afford it?" Her words echoed across the marble-floored room, drawing curious and condescending glances from the surrounding clients. A man in an Armani suit let out a short, amused laugh, whispering something to his wife, while others simply watched as though this were a form of entertainment. Brooke didn't stop. She reached for an old, worn-out brochure with its edges already curling, a flyer showing low, cost apartments in Queens, and tossed it onto the reception desk, letting it slide down to the floor. "Here," she said sharply, emphasizing every word with disdain. "You'd feel more comfortable with these kinds of listings. We only deal with serious clients here." Beside her, Maria, a co-worker arranging files on her desk, glanced up at the insult. A flash of derision crossed her eyes as she smirked faintly, shaking her head before looking back down at her work. Her silent complicity was enough to show this wasn't an impulsive outburst. It was a habit, a culture that had been allowed to thrive in this office. Ethan, still composed, slowly bent down to pick up the brochure. His movements were solemn, deliberate, so much so that Brooke's impatience began to show. He placed the paper back on the counter, his dark eyes locking firmly on her icy blue stare. "Thank you for the suggestion," he said evenly, his voice steady, almost serene, as if her insults had not touched his pride at all. "But I still want to see the listings for commercial properties on Park Avenue." Ethan's calm, steady gaze was like a still lake, yet it unsettled Brooke in a way she couldn't explain. She propped her chin on her hand, lifting it slightly as though looking down on someone beneath her. "Don't you get it?" she drawled, her tone dripping with challenge. "This isn't a place for us to waste our time." In the corner of the room, Emma Brooks was still holding her phone. Her live stream had begun attracting attention, with the first wave of comments scrolling across the screen as viewers stumbled upon the broadcast. "This is disgusting. Did she really just say that? Is this Caldwell and Partners? Oh my God." Emma's eyes widened slightly as the number of live viewers climbed rapidly, but she stayed silent, continuing to record everything. Ethan didn't respond to Brooke's provocation. He simply tilted his head slightly, his expression calm, as if waiting for something. But that silence only added fuel to the fire. Brooke's fingers began tapping impatiently against the marble countertop, her irritation mounting as she prepared to launch into another wave of insults, completely unaware that every single word was now being witnessed live by hundreds of people around the world. The sharp tapping of Brooke Whitfield's fingers on the counter had barely stopped when a cold, authoritative voice cut through the air from behind the reception desk. "What's going on here, Brooke?" Stepping out from behind the frosted glass door was Victor Hale, the showroom's client relations manager. The middle-aged man, dressed in a perfectly tailored grey suit with a flawlessly knotted tie, walked toward the desk with an air of authority. His sharp gaze swept over Ethan, from the simple leather shoes to the modest Timex watch on his wrist, and he raised an eyebrow with open suspicion. "This guest," Brooke quickly spoke up, her tone dripping with mockery. "He insists on seeing properties on Park Avenue," she added, lowering her voice just enough to seem discreet, but loud enough for nearby clients to hear. "He's not exactly our usual clientele." Her insinuation was enough to make a few people sitting in the lounge chuckle quietly, casting sideways glances at Ethan with thinly veiled contempt. Victor moved closer, standing at the counter with his arms folded across his chest, the posture of someone used to being obeyed. "Sir," he began, deliberately emphasizing the word sir with a sarcastic edge, "we only serve clients with genuine financial capacity. If you're interested in more modest housing, perhaps a smaller branch would be more suitable." Ethan's expression remained calm, his tone steady as he replied, "I believe I made it clear. I'm interested in commercial properties, and I'd like to speak with someone higher up." Victor frowned slightly, a cold smile tugging at the corner of his lips, as though he had just heard something utterly ridiculous. "Someone higher up?" he repeated with mock amusement. "I'm the client relations manager here, and I believe I'm fully qualified to determine who qualifies as a potential client. You should understand, our time isn't meant to be wasted on those who don't meet the criteria." At that moment, a commanding female voice echoed from behind. "What's happening here, Victor?" All eyes turned as Miranda Ellis, a senior executive of Caldwell and Partners, entered. Dressed in a sleek black suit and Louboutin heels, Miranda carried herself with the air of someone used to ruling from the top of the social ladder. She walked over without even glancing directly at Ethan and asked, her tone laced with skepticism, "I hear you're asking about commercial properties?" "Yes," Ethan answered, his voice as composed as ever. Miranda folded her arms, her sharp gaze sweeping over him from head to toe, before she delivered her judgment without hesitation. "I'm afraid you don't fit the profile of our clientele. All of our commercial listings start at a minimum investment of $50 million, typically reserved for large corporations or international investors. You don't look like that kind of buyer." Her words cut through the room like a cold blade, prompting whispers from nearby clients. A few even looked at Ethan with pity mixed with disdain. Meanwhile, in the corner of the room, Emma Brooks continued recording. Her live stream had begun to explode as the viewer count shot into the hundreds. Comments flooded the screen. "Oh my God, open discrimination on camera. What's the name of this company? Caldwell and Partners? Somebody start the hashtag real estate racism now." Emma's heart raced as she watched the numbers climb, realizing things were spiraling far beyond anyone's control in this room. Ethan, however, stood unmoving, calm as a rock in the middle of a storm. His gaze locked onto Miranda, his tone quiet but cutting as he asked, "So is this how Caldwell and Partners treats all its clients?" For a brief moment, Miranda hesitated, but her confidence quickly returned. She crossed her arms tighter, tilting her chin slightly toward Brooke and Victor. "Yes," she said firmly. "For clients who don't meet the standards, this is our protocol." Those words, uttered in just a few seconds, were enough to push Caldwell and Partners to the brink of a media firestorm, one that no one in the room seemed to realize had already begun. The murmurs in the showroom grew louder as the unspoken confrontation continued. Ethan Caldwell stood tall, his calm expression more like that of an observer than someone being humiliated. In stark contrast, Brooke Whitfield grew increasingly smug, her fingers tapping rhythmically on the reception desk, as if asserting her control over the situation. Victor Hale stood with his arms crossed, looking at Ethan with a mocking gaze, while Miranda Ellis remained beside him, her face cool and detached as if her judgment had already been delivered. In a discreet corner, Emma Brooks clutched her phone tightly, the live stream vibrating constantly with incoming comments. The viewer count spiked from a few hundred to nearly 1,000 in just minutes. Comments flooded the screen. "This is happening at Caldwell and Partners. Unbelievable! This is blatant discrimination. Is anyone recording this? Tag at Black Excellence. Daily right now. Expose them." Emma glanced around nervously, her heart pounding. She knew that being caught could cost her the internship, but what she was witnessing far exceeded the ethical boundaries of a supposedly reputable real estate company. Meanwhile, Victor leaned closer, deliberately lowering his voice, but still loud enough for surrounding clients to hear. "You are wasting everyone's time. I suggest you leave before I have to ask security to intervene." Brooke immediately chimed in, her tone dripping with sarcasm. "We don't want to involve the police either, but if we have to, I'll gladly make the call. Don't forget, this entire place is under surveillance." Her words were instantly dismantled by Emma's live stream when a viewer commented, "Their cameras? Ours are better. Save this video. The evidence is crystal clear." Another wrote, "Just shared this on Twitter. #real estate. Racism is starting to trend." Ethan remained composed, his demeanor unreadable. He simply adjusted the cuff of his navy polo, then looked directly at Victor and Brooke. "Before you call the police, perhaps you should review the staff handbook, section 4.7, on customer service policy. I believe you've overlooked the most important part: respect." Victor's expression faltered for a brief second, a flash of discomfort betraying him. But Brooke quickly broke into a derisive laugh, clinging to her sense of superiority. You know the handbook. How amusing. But I'm afraid that won't change anything." Her arrogance had barely faded when the live stream passed 2,000 viewers, and a pinned comment sent a chill down Emma's spine as she read it. "I'm a journalist from Real Estate Watchdog. Whoever is recording this, DM me now. We're running this story tonight." Miranda, still unaware of the brewing storm, crossed her arms tightly and lifted her chin, her voice cold and cutting. "If you don't leave, we will proceed according to protocol. Caldwell and Partners is not a place for those who lack financial capability." Ethan stared at her, his dark eyes calm and unwavering, as if he were waiting for something bigger to unfold. And indeed he was, because the storm of public outrage outside these glass walls had already begun, and within hours, the entire story would spiral far beyond anyone's control in this room. The once bustling showroom, filled with conversations about multi-million-dollar properties, suddenly fell into an unusual silence. The air felt tense, as if stretched to its breaking point. Ethan Caldwell stood tall, his hand resting lightly on the marble counter, his calm and unwavering gaze making his silence feel almost unsettling. That composure made Miranda Ellis falter for just a split second, though she quickly masked it behind her cold, challenging expression, her arms crossed as if she still believed she held control. In the back, Emma Brooks held her breath as she stared at her phone screen. The live stream had already surpassed 3,000 viewers, and furious comments flooded in. "This man is way too calm. I'm betting he's not just an ordinary customer. I just tagged major news outlets. This is going to explode any minute now." Ethan slowly took his phone from his pocket. A soft vibration buzzed as a notification briefly flashed across the screen. "Board meeting reminder. Caldwell and Partners Executive Conference Room." The company's logo gleamed for just a second before he swiped it away. But those few seconds were enough for Emma's camera to capture it clearly. Viewers on the live stream caught it immediately, and the comment section erupted. "Wait, that's the company's logo. Did that say board meeting? He's not just any client. He's definitely an executive, maybe the top boss." Emma swallowed hard, her heartbeat quickening. She didn't dare stop streaming now because this had gone far beyond an intern's quiet observation. This was turning into breaking news. At that moment, Eleanor Grant, an older woman dressed elegantly in a tailored Chanel suit, placed her champagne glass firmly on the VIP table. Rising to her feet, her voice cut through the tension with the kind of authority she rarely used in public. "Excuse me, but I've been a client here for over a decade. I have never seen such disgraceful behavior. Is this how Caldwell and Partners treats its customers?" Her words landed like a slap across the arrogance of Brooke, Victor, and Miranda. Victor Hale shifted uncomfortably, forcing a strained smile. "Mrs. Grant, please remain calm. We are only following company protocol." But Eleanor cut him off sharply. "Protocol? A protocol that allows staff to humiliate someone just because of how they look? The Caldwell and Partners I trusted was never like this." She glanced at Ethan with a sympathetic look before turning her sharp gaze back to Miranda. Miranda stiffened for a moment, but quickly tried to regain her poised facade. "Mrs. Grant, this is simply a misunderstanding. We always maintain the highest standards for qualified clients." "The highest standards?" Eleanor's laugh was cold, her lips curling slightly. "I suspect those standards only apply to certain people." Ethan, still silent until now, watched the exchange with an almost imperceptible flicker of amusement in his eyes. Tilting his head slightly, his voice finally broke the silence, deep and steady enough for everyone in the showroom to hear. "Mrs. Grant, thank you for speaking up. Perhaps it's time some people here understood exactly who they're standing in front of." Brooke raised an eyebrow, letting out a mocking laugh. "And who exactly are we standing in front of?" Ethan smiled faintly, a calm, almost serene smile, but behind it lay something far more powerful. No one in the room realized that this very moment marked the beginning of the biggest shock Caldwell and Partners had ever faced. The showroom was silent. The whispers from earlier had vanished, leaving only the soft background music playing through the ceiling speakers. Ethan Caldwell stood tall, calmly adjusting the cuff of his sleeve before deliberately placing his phone on the marble counter. He didn't look at anyone, but every movement radiated absolute confidence, making Brooke Whitfield, Victor Hale, and Miranda Ellis instinctively tense. "What are you trying to do?" Brooke spoke up, her tone attempting to sound mocking, though the unease in her voice was obvious. Ethan didn't answer immediately. He opened the black leather briefcase in his hand and pulled out a thick cream-colored envelope. Every motion was slow and deliberate, as if he was intentionally stretching the moment, forcing every eye in the room to stay fixed on him. Then, he placed the documents on the counter and slid them forward. Miranda frowned, squinting at the bold heading on the first page. Within seconds, her cold expression hardened, and Victor leaned in to read more clearly, printed sharply at the top, like a blade cutting through the air. "Caldwell and Partners Real Estate, Internal Audit Division." Beneath it, in larger, bolder letters, "Confidential Employee Performance Evaluation." And at the bottom of the page, the line that froze the room completely: "Ethan Caldwell, Chief Executive Officer." Brooke was the first to break the silence, but her voice trembled. No, this can't be real. This is some kind of joke, right?" Ethan tilted his head slightly, his expression as calm as ever, and replied simply, "I'm not joking, Ms. Whitfield." Victor's hands shook as he picked up the documents, his lips moving as he read the name again, as if hoping he had misread it. "Ethan Caldwell, CEO. His face went pale, the arrogance gone entirely. Miranda, still trying to keep control of the situation, stepped forward, forcing her voice to stay steady. You're really the CEO? If that's true, then why didn't you? Ethan cut her off, his voice steady and resonant, carrying the weight of authority. I don't owe anyone here an explanation for why I'm standing in this showroom. But perhaps I should ask you this instead. Why are my employees insulting a customer simply because he's not wearing designer clothes or accompanied by a financial advisor? A notification pinged on Emma's phone, her live stream exploding with activity. The viewer count shot past 5,000 as comments flooded in. Oh my God, he's really the CEO of this company. This is about to blow up, mark my words. Look at their faces. Karma came fast today. Ethan remained composed, pulling out a sleek black access card from his jacket pocket. He held it up so everyone could see the gold-engraved letters. Executive access, all floors. The entire room fell into complete silence. Brooke stepped back, her face drained of color. Victor swallowed hard, and Miranda stood frozen, her lips parted but no words coming out. Ethan looked at the three of them, his tone calm, without anger. Yet every word landed like a hammer. I'm not here to listen to excuses. I came to see with my own eyes how my customers are being treated, and you didn't disappoint me in the worst way possible. At that moment, Eleanor Grant stepped forward, resting a hand on Ethan's shoulder, her voice filled with respect. Mr. Caldwell, if you need a witness, I'll gladly stand with you. Ethan nodded slightly, giving her a small, appreciative smile before turning back to the stunned faces in front of him. You will all answer for what happened today. But it won't just be you. This entire toxic culture will change. Meanwhile, on the live stream, a new comment was pinned at the top. I'm a reporter from CNN. Whoever is filming this, contact me immediately. This will lead tonight's news. The storm had officially begun. The executive elevator doors slid shut, carrying Ethan Caldwell to the top floor of the building. The glass panels reflected the golden Manhattan skyline, where skyscrapers gleamed under the setting sun. Ethan stood tall, his face calm, his deep eyes betraying no emotion. His phone vibrated repeatedly with messages, updates from the media department about major news outlets reaching out for statements. But he didn't bother looking. What mattered more was waiting for him in the boardroom. When the elevator doors opened, it revealed a world entirely different from the chaos below. Polished ebony floors, Picasso paintings adorning the walls, and framed awards that gleamed under the soft lights. In the center of the vast room stood a long walnut conference table that could seat nearly 20 people. Every key member of Caldwell and Partners was already present, seated tensely, their eyes fixed on Ethan as he entered. Mr. Caldwell, Patricia Monroe, head of human resources, rose immediately, a tablet filled with data clutched in her hands. We've received the preliminary reports. The situation is far worse than expected. Ethan pulled out a chair and sat at the head of the table. I want the numbers. Patricia drew in a deep breath, her voice tight. The legal team estimates potential damages from class action lawsuits related to discrimination could range from $60 to $80 million if more clients come forward. The hashtag #RealEstateRacism is trending at the top on Twitter, and major outlets like CNN, NBC, and The Times have already requested an official statement. Robert Miles, the senior legal advisor, adjusted his glasses and added, "That's not counting potential penalties under New York State human rights law and the Federal Fair Housing Act. We're facing the risk of a full-scale investigation. If it's proven this was systemic, damages could hit 9 figures." A heavy silence fell over the room. Some board members lowered their heads. Others whispered nervously about investor reactions. Ethan, however, remained calm, his hands clasped together on the table. "And what about internal issues?" he asked evenly. Patricia nodded, handing him the tablet. "In the past 6 months, there have been at least 20. 3 internal reports concerning discriminatory behavior by staff, most of which were dismissed or labeled as insufficient evidence. The same names keep coming up." She glanced at the screen, then met Ethan's gaze. "Including Victor Hale, Miranda Ellis, and Brooke Whitfield." A cold, faint smile tugged at Ethan's lips. No surprise there. Outside the massive glass window, the Manhattan skyline turned to hues of amber as the sun began to set. The golden light spilled into the room, casting a stern glow on Ethan's face. "Schedule a disciplinary hearing immediately," he ordered, his voice sharp. "I want them in this room within 30 minutes, and call Harold Blake, the security guard. I want him as a witness." Patricia blinked, surprised. "Harold Blake? From the ground floor?" Ethan nodded. "Yes. In a building full of rot, at least one man deserves to be recognized." The boardroom went utterly silent as Ethan stood, adjusting his tie, his gaze sweeping across every member present. "Be prepared. We're not just saving the company's reputation. We're rewriting how Caldwell and Partners will be remembered in history." An elderly board member spoke up, his voice trembling. "Mr. Caldwell, will you fire them immediately?" Ethan turned his head, his eyes sharp as a blade. "Not just fire them. I'll make them an example for the entire industry." 30 minutes from now, a storm would erupt in this very room. The walnut doors of the boardroom swung open. 3 familiar faces entered, their expressions starkly different from the arrogance they usually carried. Victor Hale tried to maintain composure, but his hands trembled slightly as he placed them on the table. Miranda Ellis walked in slowly, her eyes darting around nervously, while Brooke Whitfield could barely hide her panic, gripping the edge of her blazer tightly, her face pale. At the head of the table sat Ethan Caldwell, his hands clasped, his gaze cold and sharp. Surrounding him were all members of the board of directors, Patricia Monroe, head of human resources, and Robert Miles, the senior legal advisor. At the back of the room sat Harold Blake, the security guard, calm but with eyes gleaming, watching every move. "Sit," Ethan ordered, his voice deep and steady. The 3 of them moved slowly, pulling out chairs and sitting across from him. The room was silent, except for the soft tapping of Ethan's pen against the polished wooden table. He unlocked the tablet before him, tapped a few times, and the large screen behind him lit up. Footage extracted from the security cameras began to play. Familiar scenes appeared for everyone to see. Brooke throwing a cheap property brochure at Ethan's feet, Victor bluntly questioning his identity and financial capacity, Miranda coldly declaring he did not fit the company's client profile. A few board members frowned in disgust, while Patricia shot Brooke a glance so cold it could cut glass. Brooke stared down at the table, unable to lift her head. Ethan spoke, his voice not loud, but every word landing like a hammer. "This is not the first time. Over the past 6 months, at least 20, 3 internal reports of discriminatory behavior were ignored, and unsurprisingly, your 3 names appear in the majority of those reports." Victor tried to keep his tone calm. "Mr. Caldwell, please allow me to explain. We were only trying to protect the company's time, to avoid unqualified clients." "Unqualified?" Ethan cut him off, his tone dropping even lower, his gaze sharp as a blade. "I was a client, a regular client, and the way you treated me is exactly how you treat anyone who doesn't fit the so-called standards you've decided to enforce." Miranda took a deep breath, attempting to intervene. "Mr. Caldwell, I admit we may have misjudged this particular situation, but there was no intention of discrimination." Ethan gave a cold smile, his eyes locking on hers. "You told me in front of other clients that I did not belong to Caldwell and Partners' client profile. That was not a slip of the tongue. That is a mindset deeply rooted in the way you work." Brooke suddenly burst into tears, her voice shaking. I'm sorry, Mr. Caldwell. I didn't know who you were." Ethan tilted his head slightly, his voice calm but so cold. The temperature in the room seemed to drop. "If I had been just another client, would you have treated me any better? Or would you have continued stepping on people simply because they weren't wearing designer clothes?" Brooke sobbed harder, unable to answer. Ethan tapped his pen lightly on the table, signaling Patricia. She stood, her voice clear and firm. "Based on verified evidence, Caldwell and Partners is hereby terminating the employment of Victor Hale, Miranda Ellis, and Brooke Whitfield. Grounds: gross violation of professional ethics and direct harm to the company's reputation. Effective immediately. No severance. No letters of recommendation." Brooke cried openly. Miranda lowered her head in silence, and Victor sat motionless, his hands gripping the armrests so tightly his knuckles turned white. Ethan rose from his chair, ending the meeting with a voice that was soft, yet echoed throughout the room. "Caldwell and Partners will tolerate no form of discrimination. Let this serve as a lesson, not just for the 3 of you, but for this entire company." His eyes turned to Harold Blake. "And Harold, after this meeting, I need a word with you. Caldwell and Partners needs people like you in higher positions." No one dared to breathe too loudly as Ethan left his seat. The meeting was over, but its impact would shake the entire company for a long time to come. The next morning, the Caldwell and Partners headquarters on 57th Avenue felt like a silent battlefield. Employees passing by the main boardroom still whispered about last night's emergency meeting. News of the immediate dismissal of 3 senior staff members had spread like wildfire, not only throughout the company, but across the entire real estate industry, especially as the video from Emma Brooks's live stream continued to be shared at a staggering pace. Ethan Caldwell sat in his executive office on the top floor, gazing out at the Manhattan skyline, bathed in golden morning light. The sun reflected off glass towers, glittering brilliantly. But in his mind, a series of reform plans were already neatly arranged. He placed his coffee cup down on the desk and gestured for the senior team that had been summoned. "We are not stopping with the dismissal of those 3, Ethan began, his voice steady yet firm. "Caldwell and Partners will change. from how we serve our clients to how we treat our own employees. And that change starts today. Patricia Monroe nodded and opened her report. We have prepared a proposal as requested, sir. All employees, from receptionists to managers, will be required to undergo unconscious bias training within 60 days. Anyone who fails to complete it will face disciplinary review. Ethan nodded. Good. But that's not enough. He turned his eyes to Robert Miles, the senior legal advisor. Robert continued, We have also partnered with a leading technology company to implement a real-time AI monitoring system for customer service. The system will record every interaction, analyze language and tone, and detect any signs of discrimination or inappropriate behavior. Any violations will be reported directly to HR. A few board members exchanged uneasy glances, but Ethan cut them off before anyone could speak. We don't have a choice. The company's reputation is at risk every passing minute. I don't want Caldwell and Partners to just survive. I want it to become a model for the entire industry. He stood and walked over to the large digital board, displaying figures and plans. One more thing, he said, his tone softening but still resolute. I want to establish a $5 million client support fund to compensate anyone who has been treated unfairly. Additionally, all branches must publicly display a customer equality commitment in every office. Patricia smiled with approval. Sir, this plan will make every employee understand this is not just a PR campaign but a real change. Ethan nodded, his expression easing slightly. We start by recognizing those who deserve it. His eyes shifted to Harold Blake, sitting humbly in the corner, still in his simple security uniform. Harold, you've proven that professionalism and respect for clients don't need to be taught from a book. Starting today, you are promoted to Security and Customer Service Supervisor. Caldwell and Partners needs people like you in leadership positions. Harold's eyes widened, stunned to silence. He stood abruptly, his voice trembling. Mr. Caldwell, I don't know what to say, except thank you. Ethan smiled and extended his hand. You've earned it, Harold. And you will be the example that shows every employee here that respect is the true value of Caldwell and Partners. The room filled with applause, not the polite kind, but genuine agreement rarely seen at such meetings. These changes would not only save the company's reputation, but also lay the foundation for a new culture where there was no room for discrimination. Outside, on social media, the video of last night's dismissals and this morning's reform announcement was being shared at lightning speed. The hashtag Real Estate Reform began trending, replacing Real Estate Racism, and Ethan Caldwell's name was now being mentioned as a symbol of change. 6 months had passed since the media storm erupted, and the luxurious showroom of Caldwell and Partners on 57th Avenue had transformed beyond recognition. The glossy white marble walls and expensive artwork were still there, but the atmosphere inside was completely different. The moment customers stepped through the glass doors, they were greeted by the warm smile of Kesha Moore, a young black woman with an MBA from Wharton. She was no longer just a receptionist. She was the new symbol of inclusivity and diversity that Ethan was building. Kesha spoke to every client with genuine kindness, regardless of what they wore or what kind of bag they carried. Her name appeared consistently on the Employee of the Month board, which now stood proudly in the center of the lobby, replacing the old portraits of those who had been dismissed. On the wall, A large LED screen displayed service statistics in real time. 365 days without discrimination complaints, 94% customer satisfaction, 43% of employees from minority groups. Anyone entering the showroom could see it, and it was a living testament to the commitment Ethan had promised, transparency and accountability. In one corner, Harold Blake, now wearing a sharp new suit with a name badge reading Security and Customer Service Supervisor, stood speaking with a group of younger employees. He shared stories about the early days, when even a simple kind greeting could change how customers felt. His face radiated pride, a far cry from the humble security guard he once was. And it wasn't just Harold. Emma Brooks, the once intern who had courageously live-streamed the incident, had now become a well-known name. Her video had surpassed 10 million views and was featured in a short documentary about real estate reform. Emma had also been awarded a journalism scholarship from a prestigious university, all because she stood firmly for what was right that day. At the far end of the lobby, the elevator doors opened, and Ethan Caldwell stepped out, looking as composed as ever in his sleek grey suit. He paused in front of the LED board, quietly observing the constantly changing numbers. A new employee approached him, with respect in his voice. "Mr. Caldwell, it's hard to believe we've changed this much in such a short time." Ethan smiled, his eyes calm and thoughtful. "The change didn't happen because of me. It happened because of all of you. People who understand that respect is what keeps this company alive." At that moment, a familiar voice sounded behind him. Eleanor Grant, now serving as Caldwell and Partners honorary brand ambassador, walked in with her young niece, who was looking to buy her first apartment. She smiled gently. "I didn't just come back to buy more real estate, Ethan. I came to show her that if a company can change, the world can too." Ethan nodded slightly, glancing around the showroom filled with smiling faces. He knew what they were building now was no longer just a business. It was a new standard, a place where human dignity came first. Outside, the Manhattan sunset stretched across the skyline, casting golden reflections onto the newly redesigned logo. Caldwell and Partners, real estate for everyone. And this time, that slogan wasn't just a marketing tagline. It was the truth. What Ethan Caldwell did not only saved the reputation of a company, but also proved a powerful truth. Corporate culture is not built on fancy slogans. It is built on how we treat every single person, no matter who they are. If you believe that respect is the most important value in any job, hit like and subscribe to help spread this message. And comment right below this video with the 3 words, "Hold respect," so we can remind each other that every great change always begins with the smallest actions like this.